Okay, so let's just quickly review what we learned up till now. The basic nakuda is that we discussed that the Jews are very clever. The Midrash gives an analogy that a king came into the country with a duke, a prefect, and an officer with these people, and one said, "I'll choose the duke," and one said, "I'll choose the prefect," which is a type of a governor, and the other said, "I'll choose the officer." And there was a clever person amongst them that said, "I'll choose the king." And the Rebbe is gonna describe the cleverness. The Midrash says it because of the cleverness of the Jewish people that the Jewish people choose HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The king is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and in the analogy, the duke and the prefect and the minister and the officer, these are the intermediaries that the nations of the world either worship, or they believe that these intermediaries, by giving them honor and by irradiating themselves with them, they will get more blessing. And the clever person, the Jewish person, picks the king. So the Midrash said he picks the king. Why? And the Rebbe has some questions on that. The Rebbe's now going to say, and we said that what's the Jewish view? The Jewish view is that everything, all the powers in the world, are obviously Hashem controls all the powers in the world, right? Like we say, and when we say Shema Yisrael, so when we say Elokeinu, right? So the Shulchan Aruch says the kavanah has to be Tokif v'Ometz, Bal Yecholes, but Bal Koifes Kulam. Hashem is all powerful. He's the Almighty. He's the master of all the powers. Bal Yecholes. He's the master of all abilities. Well, Bal Yecholes Kulam. He's the master of all powers. There are powers. The sun. Without the sun, there's no photosynthesis. Plants don't grow. Without the moon, there's no mushrooms, and leeks, and cucumbers, and watermelons, and other things that I think are related to the moon. But we should not make the mistake and think that these celestial bodies have any free choice in the matter. They're just the means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu conveys blessing and sustenance to the world. They're the means that Hashem set it up. And we shouldn't think also that, way back when, people were silly, they worship constellations. But we don't do that. But we also, in a way that's called dakus. Hasidus talks about there's avodah zarah, idol worship, and then there's idol worship, avodah zarah b'dakus, where it's not you're actually bowing down to an idol, but when you give any credence to the forces of the world, whether it be Biden or Wall Street or your boss or the bank manager, and you think that your sustenance is dependent upon them, that's also a type of avodah zarah. Because the Jewish view is that everything, all the means through which Hashem conveys blessing to the Jewish people as a whole and to each and every Jew as an individual, is all like the axe in the hand of the chopper. You build a house, you don't thank the axe. You need the axe. The axe is a tool. But it's the builder who built the house. You understand it's the builder, not the axe. The axe is just the tool. And now, the Rebbe is going to, in chapter 4, the Rebbe is going to discuss another aspect of the cleverness of the Jewish people, why the Jewish people pick the king. Page 204. We'll just read it in English. A further concept can be derived from the analogy given in the Midrash of a king, dukes, and other officers. Because in the analogy, the dukes and the officers have free choice. Therefore, it's logical to assume that the choice of the duke, I will choose the duke as my patron, or the prefect, or the officer, will motivate them to convey a greater amount of shefa, of blessing, to those who choose him. But in the analog, which is the nimshal, that's not the way it works, because when someone worships the stars and the constellations, it has no benefit. because they don't have free choice. They're merely the axe in the hands of the chopper. And from this, it can be understood that the clever person's decision, I will choose the king, is motivated by the fact that serving the king is more important to him than the benefit he will receive from the officers. Now, you could ask a question right now. We just said there is no benefit you'll receive from the officers because they don't have free choice. But we'll see in a second something that the Rebbe is going to point out that is very interesting. So hold off on that question. So to refer to the analog, we thought up till now that the reason that the Gentiles make an error is because it's an intellectual error. Now the Rebbe says, no, the primary reason the nations of the world serve the intermediaries, the sun, the moon, etc., the political forces, Wall Street, the bank manager, while the Jewish people serve God and they understand that everything is just like an axe in the hands of the wood chopper. It's not because the Gentiles make an intellectual error and maintain that they have free choice to constellations, while the Jews, by contrast, know the truth that the intermediaries are merely an axe in the hands of the chopper. That's not the main reason. It's part of the reason, but it's not the main reason. Instead, the Rebbe says, the fundamental reason that the nations of the world err is because what's most important for the nations of the world is that they receive sustenance, while what's most important for the Jews is serving the king. Now the Rebbe will explain the concept, page 206. The fundamental reason that the Gentile nations serve the stars and constellations is explained in a number of different Maamarim, which you can see those Maamarim on footnote 39, is that in order to receive influence from the side of holiness, bittul is necessary. But since the Gentiles don't wish to nullify themselves, so they serve false deities. Because to receive influence from these intermediaries, bittul is not required, as the Zohar states. The ruach misaba is damin tadir b'magna ubrekanya. That a spirit of impurity is continuously found where there's no cost and where there's emptiness. As it's written in the pasuk, the Zohar brings this pasuk: we ate in Egypt without having to pay. I don't know if the Zohar brings this pasuk, but the Zohar says a spirit of impurity is continuously found where there's no cost and where there's emptiness. Influence from the nether side, from the milu'umatzeh, is conveyed without cost. There's two sides. Zeh lu'umatzeh bara elokim. One side opposite the other side, Hashem created. There's the side of holiness, and then there's the side of the opposite of holiness. Why did Hashem create the opposite of holiness? Why?
You wouldn't know one from the other. If there wasn't unholiness, you wouldn't know what was holy.
Why wouldn't you know? Why wouldn't you feel closeness to Hashem, realize He's the truth of everything? Would you have free choice? If there was only goodness and only holiness, would you have free choice?
No. Sounds like a good deal to me.
You wouldn't have free choice. Hashem wants man's efforts. Hashem wants us to make for Him a dwelling place in this lowly world. In order for us to make a dwelling place in this lowly world, we have to do our part. We have to separate the bad from the good. We have to choose the good. There was once a guy who had a different avodah. His name was Adam Arishon, the first man. His avodah wasn't to separate the good from the bad, because the bad wasn't a part of the world. It wasn't a part of him. He brought it into the world by eating from the Eitz Hadas. The whole world had a yerida. That was also Hashem's ratzon. It was also Hashem's will. Adam Rishon got punished because Adam Rishon should have listened to Hashem. Hashem's will was that Adam Rishon would not have eaten from the. He commanded him not to eat from this, but he knew he would. We, on the other hand, are living post Eitz Hadas, post the Avera of Adam Arisha. We're living in a world where there's good mixed together with evil. And sometimes it's hard to distinguish between good and evil.
Sometimes the world is completely deceiving itself by siding with the evil man.
So now it's becoming easier. Now it's becoming very clear what's good and what's evil. And it's becoming very clear who are good and who are evil. The people that are siding with Hamas and siding against Israel are evil people. They're mamash evil people.
The majority of the world.
Now, unfortunately,
Hashem will take care of us. And then,
like the other day, I don't want to get into politics too much, but unfortunately, they had it, and Biden starts telling us, okay, we have to give humanitarian aid to the Azatim. So now I'm saying, first give to the the hostages the humanitarian aid, and then we'll.
The hostages are not.
yeah, there's a lot of
The first thing is winning the war.
there's a lot of evil
That's
people.
what I'm saying. Regarding the humanitarian aid.
Yeah,
We're
yeah,
talking about humanitarian aid. First give the hostages, and then worry about that.
yeah. You know, there used to be pogroms would break out because of blood libels. You know about
We
blood
still have
libels, right?
today.
Blood libels. And go defend yourself against the blood libel. Well, we didn't kill the child and take his blood to take matzahs. We don't eat blood, and it's forbidden for us to kill, and we're peaceful people. But there's a latent anti-Semitism that's under the surface. Like the Torah says, it's a halacha that Esav hates Yaakov. It's a halacha. Esav hates Yaakov. Now, there's plenty of Gentiles that are on our side, but there's plenty that aren't. But we have a secret weapon that's more powerful than everyone, and that's HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We just have to have faith. We have to do our part. We have to make the ishtadlus. We have to daven, and we have to give tzedakah, and we have to, if we have a gun, we have to carry it on Shabbos, right? And if we're soldiers, we have to fight. Everyone has to do what they have to do. We're
unfortunately paying the price for it right now. When a lot of soldiers, unfortunately, are no longer with us.
I know. Hashem should protect all the soldiers. Should also come home safe and whole. All our hostages should come home safe and whole. Should mamish. Yizayis to see the gula, or it's a tough times. It's tough times. It's tough times. So but let's get back to the Maamar. The side of holiness is not free. You want to get nurture from holiness, you have to have self-sacrifice. You have to restrict your behavior. You have to act in a holy manner. But if you want to get sustenance, it's not that the sun and the moon and these intermediaries have free choice, but it's the way Hashem set it up. Hashem created the world, and we're going to see right now that influence from the nether side is conveyed without cost. That's one reason why the non-Jewish nations seek to receive their sustenance from the intermediaries, the sun, the stars, and the constellations. A second reason why, page 208, is that the sustenance that's drawn down through the stars and constellations is quantitatively greater. To explain, the nurture received by the nether side, the side of non-holiness, comes from the Or Makif, God's encompassing light, that is above the framework of Seder Ishtalshalus, of the chain-like descent, orderly descent of the divine light that goes through contraction, self-contraction, self-limitation in order to fit the vessels that it's made to fit. The prosperity that emanates from that source, from the Or Makif, is dispensed without any calculation. Hence, it is granted in abundance. On this basis, we can appreciate the unique positive quality and cleverness of the Jewish people. This is one of the ideas of the cleverness that the Rebbe wants to point out, who serve only the Holy One, blessed be He, Even though to receive sustenance from the realm of holiness, service and labor are required to make oneself a fit vessel to receive that sustenance. And not only that, but the blessings are measured, meted out in a measure, in a manner commensurate with the divine service performed. Nevertheless, for the sake of serving Hashem alone, the Jews are willing to forego the abundant material prosperity that could be received. Let's stop for a minute. Just let's explain what we're saying. We're saying Hashem created the world in a way where there's a bounty. There's a huge bounty of sustenance. And the world has raw materials. And the world has fruits and vegetables. And if man were acting like man should act, right? Because we're all one family. Humanity's all one family. And when people are good and they understand that, they don't try to harm. Just like you don't try to harm a member of your family, right? You don't try to harm anyone in humanity. Good people understand we have to help each other. But, man is, since man was created, man's been causing some issues. Man's been causing some problems. And the world is a mess because of man. Man can make the world into a beautiful, beautiful habitation. And that is the 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach, the 7 laws that the Gentiles are commanded are basically that the world should be a nice place. It should be safe. It should be nice. There should be no stealing, no murder, no adultery. Everyone should serve one God.
But that's never been the case.
Well, we have work to do. It's our job. We have to be an oil goyim. We have to be a light to the nations. We have to try to light it up. We have to be lamplighters. A chassid, what, you saw the Living Jewish this week? There was a story in there that a chassid once asked the Rebbe Rashab, because the Rebbe Rashab's yortzeit is on Beis Nisan on Wednesday. What's a chassid? So he said a lamplighter. A lamplighter, someone who goes around and lights up lamps. Every Jew is a lamp, and every Jew has a light that can be lit, just waiting to be lit. And even non-Jews can be lit up and can be influenced to act in good ways if they're good people and they're not corrupted. That's our job. So Hashem created the world with an enormous bounty. And in order to receive that bounty, it depends how you want to receive it. If you want to receive the bounty without any effort and without restricting your behavior to make it conform with the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants it to be, you can. But then you're not receiving it from the side of holiness. You're receiving it from the other side. And there's a great shefa that the other side gets. It comes from the Or Makif. There's a great bounty that comes through the side of unholiness, because it comes from the Or Makif. The Or Makif and the Or Pnimi. We learned about this in the beginning in Shar Yichud V'Emunah. The Or Pnimi, the indwelling light of Hashem, is the light that's matim to the vessel, that fits like a jacket, right? If you wear a jacket that's too big, it doesn't fit. Doesn't look good. You wear pants that are too long, not only they're not fit and not look, you could trip, right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu created man, and he gave man a soul that's fit to man's body and fits to man's avodah. And that light of holiness, in order to draw from it, you have to go through the measures of doing what Hashem wants, and then you receive from the light of holiness. But if you want to receive sustenance and you don't want to do anything, you can. There's plenty of people that don't serve Hashem, both Jews and non-Jews, and they receive tons of sustenance. And they're corrupt, and they're filthy, and they're filthy rich. They receive a lot of sustenance. So the clever person in the Midrash, right? He doesn't choose the duke or the prefect or the minister or the officer. He doesn't choose these intermediaries because how does Hashem send the sustenance? He sends it through the intermediaries. Not that they have any free choice. And there could be one person. You could take two people, right? One person is corrupt and filthy and winds up in jail. And another person is corrupt and filthy and winds up with
A billionaire.
10 houses and 5 yachts. Right? Because Hashem decides who's going to get the sustenance or not. Even when it goes through the klipa, even when it goes through the leumatzeh, Hashem still decides what each person is gonna get. But it's up to us to choose how we're going to get it. Hashem's going to decide what we're going to get. But we can choose whether to nurse from the kosher milk or to nurse from the non-kosher milk. We can choose. There's two pipes of blessing that we can choose to draw down from. And every time, and this is also brought in Tanya, every time a Jew is learning Torah and doing a mitzvah, and even if he's not involved in actual holiness, but he's involved in chulin, he's involved in the mundane, but he's doing it to serve Hashem. He's doing it because he's doing a kol masech yu l'shem shamayim. All your deeds should be for the sake of heaven. He's drawing down from holiness. He becomes a chariot for HaKadosh Baruch Hu's holiness to be drawn down to him at every moment. And if at the time he chooses chas v'shalom to do things not for the sake of holiness, then he also draws down, but he draws down from the side of non-holiness. So the point the Rebbe is making over here is it's not that the Gentiles make the primary reason is not the intellectual error that they think that the stars and the moon and all the mediums that Hashem created, that through these mediums blessings come into the world. The primary reason isn't that they think that these mediums have free choice and their sustenance is dependent upon the free choice of these mediums. No. Their primary reason for wanting to get sustenance through these intermediaries and giving weight to the intermediaries is because they don't want to be mevatel themselves. They don't want to restrict their behavior and become Ovdei Hashem. They don't want to, and that's what the Zohar says, right? That the place of impurity dwells where it's free and there's no effort required. And the Or Makif gives a huge amount. The Or Makif gives without distinction. The Or Makif isn't the light that has to fit the vessel. The light that has to fit the vessel. So if the vessel is even if it's a good, clean vessel, but it's a vessel. It has to be fit. The Or Makif just gives.
What's a mocking?
Or Makif means the encompassing godly light. The Afshagam Yisrael, page 210, even though Yisrael can temporarily receive influence from the nether side, from the realm of Klipa, not only that, Ela Shehem Noitli Mechelik Baroish, since the Jews are the ones who are, by doing Averas, they're drawing down from the Or Makif into the side of unholiness. They're drawing more strength into the Kalipas than when the non-Jew sins. So they receive the first and choicest portion. Hashem gives them. You see plenty of Jewish people that are not serving Hashem that are very, very wealthy. Nevertheless, the Jewish people are willing to forego this blessing of material blessing because they cherish the limited influence they receive from the realm of holiness more. So there's two things that we can say to understand this. receive the first and choicest portion. Okay, that's understood. Okay. Any questions? You know, it says in the Gemara, it says, Adam ohev kab shelo yoter me'tesha kabim shel shchena. A person likes his kav. A kav is a certain area of a field. He prefers his one kav to the 9 kavim of his neighbor, to the much larger field of his neighbor, because he invested in it. He made it his. He internalized it. We internalize our godly service and the blessings we get when they come from the side of holiness. This is more important to a Jew, that it comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he's a recipient from the side of holiness, even if it's a smaller measure, than receiving a larger measure if it comes from the side of unholiness. So we see that's a part of the cleverness of the Jewish people, that even though the amount that the Jew might receive might be less, because it requires him to make himself a fitting vessel, and then he gets the blessing according to how much effort he made and how much of a vessel he made, he prefers the king, prefers getting directly from the king and not through the intermediaries, through the nether side. Okay, now we're in chapter 5, page 212. So the rationale that the Midrash gave as to why the clever person chooses, the Rebbe's going to bring another idea now. A few questions you're going to see there's a few ideas that he's going to develop in later chapters. The rationale that the Midrash gives why the clever person chooses the king is that all the others are subject to replacement, while the king is not subject to replacement. On the surface, this can be explained that the sustenance that comes from the Sitra Achra, from the side of unholiness, even though it's more abundant, it's temporary. It's replaced. It can be replaced because it's not going to endure forever. Because after the task of refinement is completed and the sparks of godliness that fell into the klipa, and from which klipa derives its vitality to refine and elevate it. This is our job, to refine and elevate the sparks of holiness that fell into this world, and they fell into the power of klipa. A klipa is batul legamri. The klipa will be nullified entirely. So certainly the fleeting nature of the benefits received from klipa applies to the Jewish people. For even in the present era, a Jew can receive vitality from the side of klipa only temporarily. And the converse is also true. The fact that the sustenance from holiness is measured and limited is only true in the present era. Ultimately, after the source of the inward benefit is revealed, its source being the inner dimension of the Ormakiv, the benefits granted to the side of holiness will be far greater than the abundance that stems from the external dimension of the encompassing light from which the klipa can also derive nurture right now. So, in the present era. So, Rebbe is saying that the Midrash said that why is the clever person, why does he choose the king? Because the others are all subject to replacement, while the king is not subject to replacement. So what does that mean in a deeper sense? That the power that klipa has is subject to replacement. It's not going to last forever. It's going to end. There's going to be death to klipa. There's going to be death to impurity. When Mashiach comes, there's not going to be any more impurity. So the Jewish people realize that. So they say, since even though the influence, the material influence that I can receive through these intermediaries right now is great and powerful, it's only temporary. But the influence that I'm going to be able to receive from the king is going to be forever. And not only that, even therefore the king is not subject to replacement. Not only that, the great influence that the nether side receives now, there's even going to be a greater influence received from the side of holiness after Mashiach comes. Because then the world is going to receive from the Oram Akif. In this vein, our sages state in the Garim, page 216, in the Gemara, if this is what those who transgress Hashem's will receive, certainly those who fulfill His will receive even greater benefit. There, Rabbi Akiva and the other sages were traveling to Rome, and they saw that the Jewish people was desolate. Eretz Yisrael was desolate. It was after the destruction of the Second Temple. It was after the defeat of Bar Kokhba and the revolt of Bar Kokhba. It was a very difficult period. And in Rome, they were partying. They were having a great time. The blessing was abundant. There was a bounty. There was a great bounty. So the sages were very upset at that. They mourned. But Rabbi Akiva laughed and he said that quote, if this is what those who transgressed Hashem's will receive, certainly those who fulfill His will receive even greater benefit. So Rebbe says this really can't be the explanation of why the Jewish people choose the king. This can't be the reason why the Jews choose the king, because the Midrash says, who is a wise man? One who sees the future, one who sees what will be. And according to this, there's really, I'm sorry, I skipped some lines. Page 216. This explanation, however, is not sufficient. Far from it. For from it, it logically follows that the clever person's choice of the king is not because of the king himself. It's because he knows that in the future he's going to receive more sustenance. Okay, now he's not. Now in the present era, he's got to make a lot of efforts. But in the world to come, in Gan Eden, wow, the sustenance that he's going to get is going to be much more than the people get today, those who serve the Duke and the like. Those who serve the Duke and the like are just looking at the world, this world, while the clever person thinks about the future. As our sages say, who is a wise man who sees what will be. But the Rebbe says, no, that can't be. Because the Midrash continues and says, why do the Jews serve Hashem? Because the Jews serve the Holy One, blessed be He, because Hashem is my portion, says my soul. It's a soul reason. So therefore, it can't be because of the benefit, because the soul's not out for benefit. The soul's out for just connecting with the king. The soul's not thinking about what benefit am I going to receive. The soul is all it wants is that connection with the king. So this indicates the fact that the Midrash adds this pasuk that the Jews serve the Holy One, blessed be He, because the soul says Hashem is my portion. It indicates that the clever person's choice of the king is not because of the benefit that he will derive, but solely because of the king. And the Rebbe is going to say another thing now. That intellectually we can understand, and the Rebbe is going to bring a mashal. Intellectually we can understand that the sustenance that the Gentiles receive through the intermediaries, through the klipa, is not the inner desire of the king.
Echo. Window.
Nothing to it.
Yeah, but I'm so uncomfortable.
I can't even record it. It's better.
There's the inner desire and there's the external desire. Why does a person work? Is it his inner desire to go to work? Or does he need money to give stock and support his family?
Both. We want to be productive.
Could be both. Could be both. But usually, work is a means to an end. Person usually would prefer, well, if I had the money that I needed and I wouldn't have to work, I wouldn't work. I'd do other things. I'd busy my activities with things that I want to do rather than things that I need to do. Rabbi Yechezkel Sofer, he is a very, very big Talmud Chacham, and he's a Chabad Chassid. He has a shiur that he calls the good, the bad, and the ugly. That name ring a bell by anyone?
Make my day.
Moving.
So the good is holiness. The bad is evil. What's the ugly? So he explains as follows. The Tanya says that when Hashem gives nurture and sustenance to the side of evil, it's like someone who throws a piece of meat over his shoulder. It doesn't come from their inner desire. Hashem wants there should be free choice. In order for there to be free choice, there needs to be good and there needs to be evil so that a person can choose good. If there's only good, there's no possibility that he can choose evil. There's no possibility that he can refine the world and remove the evil from the world, because every time we choose good and negate the evil, we destroy a part of the evil. We get rid of the part of the evil in the world. So Hashem gives sustenance to evil, not because it's his inner desire. It's a means to an end. And he points this out with a very, very interesting mashal, Rabbi Sofer. He says, Eichmann, Yimach Shemo. You know, Eichmann was captured by agents of the Mossad somewhere in South America, Brazil or Argentina. He was captured, he was brought back to Israel, he was put on trial, and he was hung. Which was a very, very powerful emotional experience, especially back then when the people in Israel, so many of them were survivors, and it was so close to the Holocaust. And this monster who wanted to destroy the Jewish people is now brought by the Jewish people to the land of the Jewish people, put on trial and killed by the Jewish people. Justice. What a great accomplishment of justice that was. It was a great thing. It was a great thing we did. Now, Rav Sofer says that, there's a whole book, there's a whole story about it. It didn't happen. It's not like they just went to Argentina, grabbed him, put him on a plane and brought him back. They were there for months. They had to stake out first they had to find him. Then they had to stake out his behavior. They had to see where he visited, when he was alone. And then once they finally caught him, they had to keep him for a few weeks. And they had to wash his clothes. They had to feed him. So Rabbi Sofer said, this guy waiting at the bus stop in Argentina, sitting at the cafe, drinking a coffee, pretending he's reading a newspaper, but in truth, he's just waiting there to see when Eichmann's getting off the bus and keeping track. That's what his desire was, to wait at the bus stop? No, that wasn't his desire. His desire was to capture Eichmann and to bring Eichmann back to Israel and to put him on trial and to judge him and to kill him. That justice should be served. And that person that had to feed Eichmann and wash his clothing, that was his desire? No. That was ugly. That was against his desire. He didn't even want that. It was terrible for him. It was disgusting that if he would have wanted to kill this Eichmann right there. But if he would have killed the Eichmann right then and there in Argentina, that whole thing of bringing him back to Israel and putting him on trial in front of the witnesses that he wanted to kill would testify against him and would be alive in the Jewish land and put him to death. That great accomplishment, that great emotional, powerful experience would all be lost if they would have killed him right there on the spot. So therefore, they had to keep him alive. They had to nourish him until they could bring him back to Israel and put him on trial and kill him. So he says,
It didn't bring more justice into the world, I don't think.
no, I don't. I think so. It was a great thing.
I think evil is a megaphone.
Yeah, but
We're
that monster.
Evil is being called good, as we.
You're right. You're right. Evil has not been
Australia's
completely
going
destroyed.
to test the way that we conducted the investigation of what happened with the 7 aid workers. Fuck that.
Let's try to keep our language clean.
I'm recording this too, remember?
I understand, and I mean it.
So,
And you'll be cut out
Cut it out.
okay, good idea.
anyway.
So, you're right. You're right. Evil is still powerful, but you know, the sitra achra, it's the animal part, the animal soul. Yeah, that's what the emotional aspects of the animal soul. That's where the evil is, the lusts, the pleasures, the desires. Anti-Semitism is one of those desires that a Gentile feels when the Jews are doing things that are good. I think it was Rabbi Kahana, Hashem Yikom Damo, that said that I much prefer the Gentiles condemning us when we're destroying our enemies than making monuments for us when we're dead. You're right, Chanoch. The evil now is rearing its ugly head, but that's how an animal is. When an animal, we're getting towards the end. We're getting towards the final chapter where Hashem is going to reveal His power, and He's going to redeem the Jewish people and destroy all our enemies. Bezrat Hashem. We should see it now. Evil sees that its end is coming to an end, and when an animal is backed up into a corner, what does it do? Does it hold up his hands and submit?
No.
No. It puts up its last fight. Evil is putting up its last fight, and there's plenty of people that are on the side of the Jews, and there's plenty of people that are against the Jews, and Hashem is looking and seeing, and I think that Hashem knows how to make a just calculation with those people that are against His people. I think Hashem knows how to do it. I know Hashem knows how to do it. Yeah. So anyway, they would have liked to have killed Eichmann right there on the spot. And we would like right now that there should be no evil in the world. But Hashem created evil, and my man's bad deeds increase, especially the sins of the Jews, increase the power evil has. If we want to do things to reduce the evil, we have to connect to Hashem. We have to have achdus, unity with our fellow Jew. We should have the love of a fellow Jew. We have to try however we can to influence our fellow Jew to go in the right way. And if we have the ability to influence non-Jews, to influence them too to go in the right way. We have to try to do our part. And eventually, evil will be destroyed. So what the Rebbe is saying over here is that the Jew, the clever person in the Midrash who chooses the king and doesn't choose the duke or the prefect or the officer, is because he understands that the sustenance given to these intermediaries is not from Hashem's inner will. The whole reason Hashem is giving them sustenance is in order that there should be the side that's the opposite side of holiness, in order that we should have free choice, in order to choose good. He understands that's not Hashem's inner will. And he says, I don't want to receive from the external will. It's like receiving from the way the Alter Rebbe explains it, someone who throws food to their enemy over their shoulder. He really doesn't want to. It's not his inner will. He does it because it's a means to an end. And the so we're in the middle of page 219. The intent of the statement is that the fact that they're all subject to replacement indicates that even at the present time, when they have power, when evil has power, they don't represent true existence. In the analog, the fact that the stars and the constellations possess vitality that enables them to convey life energy to the animals and the nations of the world is not because of their own inherent power, chas v'shalom, but rather because they derive vitality from the external realm of holiness. And since that vitality that comes from the holiness within them doesn't become one with them, on the contrary, it's in exile with them, the inherent state of these immediate intermediaries is one of death. The same applies to those who receive the vitality from them. As explained in Tanya, the wicked are referred to as dead because their vitality stems from a place of death and impurity. Even though right now evil has a lot of power, since in truth that power is not coming from Hashem's inner will, and when Hashem's inner will is revealed in this world, all evil and evildoers will be destroyed. There will be no evil. It means even right now, they're receiving their power from a place of impurity, a place that's going to die, a place that's temporary. On this basis,
But they receive it because Hashem allows it.
that's right.
So he does create.
That's right. He creates it because he wants to give us free choice to make a deal, to choose good and to serve him with Torah and mitzvahs, to light up the world with holiness, to influence the rest of the world, to act in a good manner and make the world a good place, and then he'll destroy all evil. And the mankind, the Jewish people and the Gentiles that serve Hashem will live in peace and harmony, like a family should. Humanity will be a family, like it should, like it was originally intended to be. And man messed it up. So man's got to fix it. And Hashem, when he sees that man has done enough, or the right time has come, he'll reveal his power. And all the evildoers will realize all their errors, and they'll either be destroyed or they'll do tshuva, depending on what merits they have, I guess. Now, on this basis, that the impurity is really, it's a place of death and temporariness, we can understand the clever person's statement, I'll choose the king, because all the others are subject to replacement. He doesn't desire the prosperity that's drawn down from the place of death and impurity, even though it's abundant. Instead, he desires sustenance from the realm of holiness, even though it is limited in nature, for he desires to receive from the king himself. And in the next chapter, we really don't have, I'll just tell you the mashal. It's a very interesting mashal to help better understand the idea that's in this chapter, because the next couple of chapters kind of a continuation of ideas before the Rebbe resolves all those ideas. But the next chapter talks of a very interesting mashal about a person that was invited to sit at the table of the king. Chanoch, you'll like this mashal. The king invited a person to come be my guest at a meal that I'm making for you. So, of course, this person is going to feel wonderful. He's going to feel so happy and connected to the king. And even though, of course, at the feast, there's going to be an abundance of food, that's not his main focus on how good the chicken is or how good the meat is. His main focus is that he's in the presence of the king. Now, after the meal is over, there's leftovers. They go into the kitchen, and the waiters and the servants, they enjoy the leftovers. They also have, there's plenty. When the king serves in an abundance. And the servants also get to eat from the leftovers. And then they take whatever is still left on their plates, and they throw it in the garbage outside. And who comes? The dogs and the cats. Right? And they have a party. That's where the mashal ends. Rabbi Yechezkel Sofer, he takes it one step further. And he says, and then afterwards, when the dogs and cats are done, so they have their yitziot. They do their thing. Yeah, they relieve themselves. And then all kinds of bugs and flies come along and feast on that stuff. So that the point of that mashal is to understand that the Jewish people, we're in the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to connect to Him and to serve Him through Torah and mitzvahs and to have Avos Yisrael and to have bittul and to sacrifice our material desires when they conflict with Hashem's desires, and even when they don't conflict, to do them not because of our physical lusts, but because we should eat in order to be healthy, in order that we should have strength, in order to serve Hashem. And all similarly with all our other physical and material desires. That's the person who sits in the presence of the king. And then there are the servants. They also get, but they're getting from that's not the inner intention. The inner intention is to be in the presence of the king. You need to have bittul, you need to have self-sacrifice, and you need to make effort. That's the inner intention. And that's why Hashem created the world. Like we said many, many times, He gives also to the servants and to the dogs and to the flies and the ants and the bugs. But that's not His inner intention. So the clever person, even though there's a tremendous amount of sustenance, the clever person is willing to forego the sustenance in order to be able to receive directly from the king. Okay, so we'll stop here for today.